When have you seen the real world hit a spoiled brat? When the high school principal's daughter, who previously got away with all kinds of garbage behavior, vandalism, dinking, major bullying, got caught vandalizing a lecture hall in uni, she was unceremoniously dumped and banned. Parents whined for months on FB about their poor baby's unfair treatment and the fact that her applications to other unis were being denied. These parents are exactly why shitty children turn into even shittier adults. My ex was a prime example. He was always getting in trouble, in and out of juvie/jail. Don't judge me. I was 16 and thought dating an older guy that was rough around the edges was a good idea. Obviously, I was very wrong. Every time this guy would do something terrible, his family and parents would blame it on other people or his friends, or he was having a bad day, or he's such manhood person, he didn't mean it. Have you ever seen on those murder shows where the victim's family and the defendant's family are at odds, and the defendant's family is saying that the victim's family is ruining their child's life because they were wrongly accused? That's exactly the same thing. It doesn't matter what they're accused of or what the evidence says, they're crazy. Dysfunctional family will always stand by their side and reward their terrible behavior. Spending $50 on food a day is not normal. College girl got cut off from her parents, drinking and not going to class, and had to get a job. She put on Facebook about how she's gonna go hungry and needs money. People offered her food and to make her dinner. She said, "That's okay, I just need about $40 to get through the day, I don't like to grocery shop." $40 can feed you for a week if you grocery shop. A college student could make that last a while longer, I'd say. Carrot. My food budget in college was $5 per day. I frequently managed $3 days so I could save the extra and splurge a little on D&D nights/other special occasions. Sorry about the length. I was a school bus driver in the 70s. During height of court-ordered busing, so I ferried poor kids to the rich side of town, then rich kids the other way. Lots of entitled brats, but one stands out. Super entitled kid, constantly defying rules. Eventually I caught him, with too many witnesses, attempting to set a bus seat on fire with his lighter. School officials were called. Hearing with officials and rich dad, and he's banned from all buses rest of semester. Dad offers to pay for the damage and quietly accepts the punishment. Then comes the surprise. Next morning when I arrive at 6 a.m. to clean my bus, regular task every morning, rich kid and dad are standing there. Dad introduces me to my new personal bus cleaner for the rest of the year. He brings kid every morning and forces him to wash and clean the floors on my bus before taking him on to his school. By end of year, entitled kid is actually working hard, and being friendly. We're getting along pretty well and I help him out sometimes so he can get on to school. Kid turns out okay when all is over. Good move by his dad. What a great way to teach him responsibility, great dad. That is good. Affluenza can be a real thing. When I was working at a public library, we had a few local celebrities come in from time to time. Most of them were nice, but one had a real stick up his arse. He would bitch about having to stand in line, and about late fees, and about everything else. We would just say sorry, those are the rules, or thank you for being patient, even though he wasn't. One day, he and I were apparently both having a bad day, and when I told him there was a limit on how many DVDs or video games he could check out at a time, he slammed his hands on the desk and raged, "Do you know who I am? This is a grown-ass man, mind, I was a little college student who barely looked old enough to drive." I was sick of his low-key bullying, so I just looked at him and said, "Yes, I do, Mr. X, and the rules still apply to you. Which of these would you like me to put back?" He was stunned. I don't think anyone had ever actually told him that the rules for everyone else did in fact apply to him as well. He was a little nicer after that. Not a lot nicer, but still. Trying to flex at a public library is some real low-level. You can't look down at me while you're trying to borrow games at the place I work. Right? Like, I need you to move along because there's a 4-yo behind you who wants to check out Frozen and there's a homeless guy behind him who wants the Wi-Fi password, and all three of you are equally important, so please stop wasting everyone's time. And there's a supervillain behind them looking for the book about taking over the world. Everyone is equally important. Just the tri-state area, actually. Apiri the platypus, what an unexpected surprise. My ex-best friend was raised spoiled. His family wasn't very rich, but they still always tried their best to get him everything he asked for and never taught him to take responsibility for his mistakes. He'll write a list of the things he pulled after leaving school. Got 3 strikes on his license and lost it, but running a red light wasn't his fault because there weren't many cars around. Speeding through a school zone wasn't his fault because there were no kids around, even though he was going so fast that he would have been breaking the limit if the school zone limit wasn't in place. Getting pulled over and one of his passengers wasn't wearing a seat belt was his fault for not wearing it. Quit his job because he wanted more time to skate. Did this by going to his exes and sleeping with her instead of going to work, then bragging about it on Facebook. Centerlink refuses to pay him because he's not even trying to get a job, and no place will hire him because of his track record. Sexually assaulted a 14-year-old girl at a party. He was 21, somehow managed to get away with that. Also, this wasn't some massive drinking party, it was a family barbecue. Assaulted a bouncer at a nightclub and then assaulted the police who tried to arrest him. Spent a week in jail for that. Moved to Melbourne then Sydney and ended up being homeless for a couple years and is currently homeless in Germany. Will add more when I remember it. How did he make it to Germany? That's a bit of a long story. He originally comes from there and his mother was going back for a holiday and at first told him that he can come along so long as he pays airfares, but eventually just paid that too because he cried about it. He met his dad over there. His dad in Australia is a stepdad, who he hasn't seen since he was 6, and offered to let him stay with him in Germany. Stayed there for a month and can't stand his dad cause his dad expects him to get a job, so now he lives on the streets. When my brother was in school he was horrifically bullied for being autistic. And his bully was the most entitled little shit I've ever had the displeasure of meeting. His father paid for boxing practice, karate lessons, and other martial arts. This made him think that he was the best at anything physical. My brother isn't overly fond of sports, and prefers to read in the library. As the typical nerdy kid, he's a prime target for bullies. One day when the bully had cornered my brother up against a wall, my brother finally decided that he wasn't just going to take it anymore. But he strongly dislikes violence, and thus would not be fighting back. Instead, when the bully tried to punch him, my brother ducked. 3 broken fingers and a trip to the hospital later, the bully's father finds out what had been happening. All his extra classes/training were cancelled, he had all of his electronics and games sold, and if he wanted to have a car, he would have to work for every penny himself. This story makes me so happy for some reason. Your brother's an absolute legend. I agree. The bully's dad is also pretty cool for realizing what was happening and not allowing it to continue. A kid in college was a roommate of a friend of mine. He was always bratty and spoiled but hung out with us as if he were a good friend, and we let him chill with us because sometimes he wasn't bad. Then one day we heard him arguing with his mom on the phone that he needed more money. From the ensuing argument we learned that he had, in less than 1 year, burned through 30 grand that his parents gave him for food and discretionary spending. Mind you, he was not paying for tuition, or lodging, or his car with this money. It was basically just food money, as all those other things were also already covered by his parents. He was calling his mother some really nasty things, and hung up on her. Then his father called and they got in an argument, cussing each other out. At the end of that call he threw his iPhone at the wall and shattered it. This was the original iPhone. Turns out they cut him off and basically he had to drop out of school and drive back home, out of state, because he couldn't afford to do anything anymore, and of course was too good to work a pleb's job. He added me on Facebook about a year later, and was a late-blooming 9/11 truther. Obama was president by this time, and the only thing I ever said to him on FB was a simple reply correcting one fact he was wrong about in his 9/11 conspiracy theory. He then posted like 4 replies in quick succession telling me to open my eyes, and then blocked me. Open your eyes. Wake up, sheeple. Thanks for watching, subscribe and turn on notifications to never miss a video.